This is video 3 on non-dual monism or Advaita Vedanta as taught by Sri Ramana Maharshi. For your information, people called him Bhagavan or Sri Bhagavan. So they addressed him as Bhagavan only. So I will also use the word Bhagavan, not necessarily Sri Ramana Maharshi. In the video 2, when I was talking about the 4 paths, I said the purpose of all the pursuits, the 4 pursuits, is to make the mind attenuate, make the mind subside and merge in the self. While explaining yoga, I did not mention this, how pranayama or concentration of mind helps one to become realized. We said pranayama. Pranayama is something we have to learn from competent teachers only. Pranayama involves breathing in, holding the breath, and then releasing it slowly in counts. Say for example 4 counts of taking in, then 4 counts of retaining, and 5 counts of releasing the breath slowly. This is the method I learnt from a yoga guru. So when it comes to pranayama, you have to be careful. You have to learn from competent teachers, and then only you should practice. You should not do it randomly, haphazardly, because there are some dangers involved. But breath observation is one of the techniques with no harm at all, and Bhagavan recommended that observation of breath. For example, when the breath goes in and goes out, we can count it as 1. We can go on counting up to 108 times, and then you can come reverse. Sometimes we will lose count. If you lose count, don't bother about it. Just start from wherever you thought you left, or again start from 1. Why does this work? When you observe breath, what happens? What is the mechanism? See, Sri Bhagavan says that the place from which the breath originates is the same as the place where mind originates. They have common origin. Mind and breath, they have common originating place. So when we observe the breath, the mind subsides. Or if you do vicharam, self-inquiry, when the mind subsides, breath also subsides. This is the important point. So when we do vicharam or any other method, when the mind subsides, the breath will also subside. It will almost come to zero breathing. In my own experience, it just subsides completely. When mind and breath subside completely, the mind merges in the self. And we enter a samadhi state, and if we stay there, abide there for long enough, it leads to realization. This is an important point to note. And I said at the age of 16, after realizing himself, Sri Bhagavan could not continue in Madurai at all. He just ran away from there to Tiruvannamalai. Now a question might arise. Anyway, he got realized in Madurai itself. He could as well have stayed in Madurai. Why did he run away to Tiruvannamalai? The answer given by Sri Bhagavan is that, of course, a lady asked, when Sri Bhagavan said, you don't have to go to any particular place for vicharam, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, amidst your activity, in the place in which you are, you can do vicharam. Then a lady asked him, then why did you run away from home? Then Sri Bhagavan said, it is my prarabdha, and you please follow your prarabdha. Prarabdha is the memory that we have brought from our previous births. Sri Bhagavan did not say anything about his previous birth at all, nor did he say that he was attracted to Tiruvannamalai because of his Purva Janma Vasanas. But it is an inference that everybody knows that Sri Bhagavan must have been here in Tiruvannamalai in his previous births or in the last birth, because the moment he heard Tiruvannamalai, Annamalai from one of his relatives, he got into Samadhi state. The relative visited him at the age of 16. When he asked, Sri Bhagavan asked, where are you coming from? And the visitor simply said, Tiruvannamalai. Then he asked, where is it? And I think the moment he heard the word Tiruvannamalai, see, that is how the memory works. The previous birth memory works. He got into Samadhi states. So he had an inclination, an urge to run away to Tiruvannamalai. So from the school fees, I think his brother's school fees or whatever, he had some money, and he wrote a note. He left the note at home that don't search for me, I am going in search of my father. When he meant father, he meant Annamalai, Annamalayar. He was so fond of the mountain, Tiruvannamalai mountain, he said the mountain itself was the center of the earth, it was itself Shiva. And he called him his father. They called the mountain or Annamalayar his father. So he came running, threw away the holy thread that he used to wear, that represents a community, by Brahmin community. He just threw away the holy thread, and whatever little money he had, I shaved his head, and then he continued in Tiruvannamalai. This is the explanation as to why he came running to Tiruvannamalai. So Prarabdha is at work for all of us. When Sri Bhagavan has himself admitted that it worked in his own life, so it is quite natural that all of us are bound by our Prarabdha too. Then I was mentioning that when we do sadhana, when we say sadhana, it is called spiritual practice, either of the four paths, or when we do only vicharam, the mind quietens, it reaches quiescence, it subsides and goes and settles in the originating place. What is the originating place of the mind? It is the self itself. It is the Atman itself. It is Brahman itself. So I said when we do vicharam or when we do pranayama etc., the mind subsides, it attenuates, it thins out and goes and settles in the place of origin. When it subsides, I said another phenomenon happens. There arises something in the form of I. A wordless illumination, he calls it. He calls it Sphuranam. A kind of palpable sensation, not to be mistaken for any bodily experience. And if he says, if you fix our attention on Sphuranam for long enough, it will lead to realization. What he calls Sphuranam is neither the self nor the Atma. It is something in between, but very close to Atma. Because it is not in the form of thoughts. Sphuranam is not in the form of thoughts. Thoughts are many, but Sphuranam just pulsates as one. There is no variety there. It just keeps pulsating. And it is experientially confirmed in my case also. And that is what gave me the motivation to share my experience with people. Now, I have cleared points from video 2. Now, we might have a question. Why this? What is this spirituality? If you ask another question, it will become clear. What is the purpose of human life? You and I exist. Yes, we do our everyday activities. We get involved in work or business. We have a family to take care of. All that is there. And we try to trace our purpose only within the ambit of this worldly life. I want to buy a car, I want to buy a plane, I want to buy a ship, I want to buy huge apartments, and I want to settle in a bungalow, and so on. I want to earn so much of money. I want to run a business. But if you ask Sri Ramana Maharshi, he would say none of this is your purpose. The very purpose of this human birth, right now, why you are alive in this body, is to find out your true nature and get liberated from the cycle of birth and death. And Bhagavan says, no other pursuit has any meaning at all. This is a little hard to digest. For those of us who are involved in everyday worldly life, who have worldly goals, this might be a little difficult to digest. but simply because we refuse to accept or we have objections, truth is not going to change. The sages have said something which is the ultimate reality, ultimate truth. All of us have to one day or other have to come there. So instead of rejecting it or bypassing it or setting it aside or brushing it aside, we can lend our ears, understand what it is, and get into practice in an incremental way. Slowly we can go on increasing our practice. Open-mindedness is very, very important, because where are you going to go? After all, you are in this body, you might be 20, 30, 40, and you are going to get one day old, and you are going to get 90 or 100. Then where will you go? A time will come, you need to shed the body. Then a question will arise, am I just this body? Is not the body the same as the shirt that I was wearing? I'm going to discard the shirt. Am I really discarding myself? Am I just this body alone? Sri Bhagavan would say, see, in Vedanta they'll usually say, I am not the body, I am not the mind. This is how you have to think. But Sri Bhagavan would say, I am universal consciousness. I am infinite universal consciousness, which includes this body mind also. But it is a tiny dot. He would say, the Atma, the consciousness, the Brahman is the body and everything else. Here, body is in our experience, but is everything else in our experience? And I have an interesting thing to show. See, if we say this tray is Atma, okay? This Atma only appears as body, mind, world, animals, plants, universe, etc. One only exists. The Advaitic position is one only exists. What? Assume this tray is the self. In this, the tray itself appears as all this. Like how a spider would emit the thread from its own mouth, create webs, gossamer webs, and then withdraw it. The same way, this Atma itself appears as the whole universe, and what remains is only this, because all these are appearances. Man, woman, plants, animals, universe, everything is an appearance in the consciousness that this is. This is the Advaitic position. One only exists, and that is you, that is me. At the substratum level, there is no difference between you, me, the cell phone, the table, the air around, the world, the universe. Everything is one. The road, plants, animals, everything is one only in the experience of the Jnani. This is why it is called Advaitam. Dvaitam is two. It is connected. Advaitam. See, it is two, but when it is connected, it is Advaitam. These two are seen as separate. I am different, the world is different. I am different, body is different. I am different, God is different. Now, Advaitam says, no. This one only appears as the many. The one only appears as the many. This is called non-duality. Sri Bhagavan said, எப்போதும் உள்ளது வேகான்ம வஸ்துவே. What always is the self only.